The stars blinked cold and distant above the bridge of the valiant horizon. Commander Eliar Kael stood at the helm, his hands resting on the rail as if he could feel the pulse of the galaxy itself. Around him, the crew moved like shadows, silent but alert, their faces reflecting the pale light of distant suns. No one spoke. Words felt wasted in a moment so vast, so pregnant with threat, that even the silence seemed to whisper danger. Eliar's gaze fixed on the dark stretch ahead. The outer systems had been quiet for months, a deceptive peace that gnawed at him like a phantom. Then came the first transmission, abrupt and alien, a single phrase in a language no human tongue could twist or comprehend. But the meaning was clear. They were coming. The crew stirred at last. Lieutenant Mara Solis, the communications officer, tapped a sequence into the console, her brow furrowed with worry. "They're not just ships, sir. They're something else. Organic. Alive. Alive." The word struck the bridge with a chill. It wasn't just metal and firepower out there. It was a force that pulsed, that breathed, that might think and feel. Humanity had faced threats before. Aliens, rogue fleets, even internal mutinies, but nothing like this. Eliar exhaled slowly, trying to steady his own fear. Fear was useful, it sharpened instinct, but it could not rule him. Prepare all systems. Shields, weapons, countermeasures, and sound the alert across every allied system. His voice was calm, but in it burned the fire of certainty. Humanity would respond. Humanity always responded. The crew moved with precision, a ballet of purpose in the tight metallic corridors of the ship. Mara glanced at Eliar. "Do you think we can win this?" Eliar did not answer immediately. He let his eyes drift to the viewing array, where the stars seemed impossibly far yet impossibly close, as though the galaxy itself was holding its breath. "We don't have a choice," he said finally. "We have to. That is what we are. That is what we've always been. The moment fear touches us is the moment we fall, and we do not fall." A tremor shook the valiant horizon. Sensors screamed with data. The living fleet had arrived. Ships, or whatever they were, rippled in formation like great celestial predators. Their forms shimmered, fluid and terrifying, glinting with colors no human eye had names for. They moved with a single dreadful purpose. Eliar's hand tightened on the rail. "Open hailing frequencies." "Try reason first." Mara's fingers danced over the console. A voice rang through the bridge, mechanical and alien, yet curiously melodic. The words were not translated, but the meaning pulsed clearly through every human mind aboard. "Submit or be extinguished." The simplicity of the message was horrifying. Their challenge was war. They offered no negotiation, no diplomacy, only conquest and the annihilation of anything that opposed them. Eliar straightened, the weight of command settling deep in his chest. "Then we respond as humans always do. Not with fear, not with hesitation, but with fury." The crew straightened. Sparks of courage lit their eyes. Mara met Eliar's gaze. She felt it too. The unshakable conviction that humanity, fragile and fleeting as it was in the vast cosmos, would fight with everything it had. Not because they were strong, but because they were human. The valiant horizon surged forward, engines flaring. Across the void, a small band of human ships aligned with her. One by one, systems awakened, fleets converged, and the galaxy itself seemed to brace for the storm. In that moment, Eliar Kael felt a fierce pride. The odds were astronomical, terrifying, but humanity had never yielded when challenged. Now, the first shots of the coming war were about to be fired, and every soul aboard the horizon knew they carried the legacy of an entire species in their hands. Above, the stars burned cold. Below, the hearts of humans burned hotter. And somewhere across the void, the living fleet waited, unaware that their challenge had sparked a fire that would rage beyond their comprehension. Eliar whispered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. "Let them come. We will show them what it means to face humanity." And with that, the silence of space shattered into a symphony of engines, shields, and the promise of war. The void was not silent for long. The living fleet rippled like a storm of liquid steel, moving faster than human eyes could follow. Sensors screamed. Alarms flashed red across the valiant horizon's bridge. Mara Solis's hands were steady, but her breath was shallow. "They're everywhere, sir. Multiple vectors. A pulse tore through the space between them, not a missile, not a beam, but a wave of energy that made the hull shiver. Crew members gritted their teeth as instruments faltered, and the ship groaned like an ancient beast. Eliar Kael remained calm, his voice sharp over the cacophony. "Shields up! Divert all power to forward defenses. Countermeasures now." The human fleet responded, 100 ships moving in perfect synchronization. Every maneuver, every blast was an echo of decades of human ingenuity, honed in war games and real battles alike. The humans were fragile, yes, but they were relentless, and in their desperation, they were brilliant. The first shots rang out, plasma bolts cutting through the void, flaring against the alien forms. The living ships reacted, fluid and unpredictable, twisting like serpents. Mara watched, horrified and fascinated. "They adapt," she muttered. "Every strike we make, they change." "Faster than anything we've faced." Eliar's jaw tightened. "Then we adapt faster." He directed the horizon into a flanking maneuver that no human fleet had ever attempted. The living fleet surged forward, its many tendrils closing in, confident, almost arrogant. And then, in a calculated instant, the human ships split, scattering like sparks in the dark. One of the alien tendrils followed too closely. A flash of white-hot energy burst across the void. The enemy ship screamed in a soundless wail, disintegrating into fragments that drifted like black snow. Cheers rang across the horizon, but Eliar did not smile. "Do not celebrate yet. They are alive. Every loss teaches them something. Every victory is a lesson for them." Mara swallowed. She saw it, the weight of command, the endless balance between hope and despair. She had trained for this, but no training could prepare anyone for the knowledge that death was everywhere, patient and clever. The battle continued, brutal and intimate, despite the emptiness of space. Ships collided with waves of energy, the vacuum shattering with light and fury. Every human pilot knew the odds, knew they could die, yet they fought with a fierce, undeniable pride. Each strike carried a story, a family, a memory, a home they refused to relinquish. In the midst of chaos, Eliar noticed something unexpected. The alien fleet hesitated, not for long, but enough to be noticeable. A pattern emerged. The living ships recoiled from concentrated fire, as if their fluid forms recoiled from focused human will. "Fire the guided arrays," Eliar ordered. "Concentrate on the gaps." The humans obeyed, and the results were immediate. The alien ships writhed, momentarily thrown off balance, and a series of explosions erupted in the void. Sparks scattered like stars being born, illuminating the emptiness with fiery blossoms. Still, Eliar knew it was not enough. For every ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to emerge from the darkness. And with each wave, a gnawing truth pressed upon him. This was not just a battle of weapons. It was a battle of minds, of wills, of the unyielding spirit that humans carried into every impossible fight. Hours passed, or was it minutes? Time felt irrelevant in the storm. Fatigue crept into every limb, but the humans refused to falter. Mara's voice, steady and commanding, cut through the endless noise. "We hold, we will not break." "Not today." Eliar allowed himself a fraction of a smile. Not for victory, there was none yet, but for the unshakable resilience he saw in his crew. Humanity, fragile as it was, refused to bow. Against a foe that seemed invincible, they struck with precision, with courage, with fury. And somewhere across the void, the living fleet began to realize that humanity was not like any opponent they had ever faced. The aliens were powerful, yes, intelligent, yes, adaptive, but they did not yet understand one simple truth. Humans did not surrender. Eliar's voice carried across the bridge, steady and unwavering. "Hold your ground. Make them bleed. Show them what it means to challenge us." A pulse of energy shot from the horizon, a declaration in a language older than war itself. We fight. We endure. We are human. And across the void, the storm of battle raged on, a dance of light and shadow, a clash of fury and will. In the heart of it all, Eliar Kael understood something profound. Humanity would never be tamed, never be subdued. For every ship lost, every life given, the fire of their spirit only grew stronger, and that fire, he knew, could light the darkness of the entire galaxy. The first day of battle ended not with victory, but with revelation. They had survived. And survival was only the beginning. The valiant Horizon drifted through the aftermath of the first skirmish, its hull scarred and glowing faintly from the energy strikes. The bridge was silent except for the low hum of the systems and the occasional beep of diagnostic consoles. The victory had been partial, earned through grit and ingenuity, but Eliar Kael knew it was only the beginning. Mara Solis leaned over the communications array, replaying the data of the living fleet. "Sir, every loss we inflicted, they're learning from it. Every formation we used, every vector we attacked from, they're adapting faster than we predicted." Eliar's jaw tightened. "I know." His eyes were fixed on the stars outside, but he wasn't looking at them. He was looking through them, imagining the unseen enemy plotting, calculating, evolving. That is what makes this war different. They don't just fight. They think. They don't just adapt. They anticipate. The crew's faces reflected tension, fatigue, and an unspoken fear. Even the bravest could not escape the shadow creeping over their minds. The creeping doubt that perhaps this enemy was beyond comprehension, beyond defeat. Yet even in the face of that, human resolve burned brighter than any star. Eliar's second-in-command, Commander Jonas Varek, stepped forward. "Oh, we can't just react, sir. We need to force them into a pattern. Make them predictable. If we wait, we die." Eliar nodded. "Exactly. And that's what we'll do. Mara, send decoy signals. Make them think the horizon is vulnerable. Jonas, ready the flanking teams. Tonight we strike where they least expect it." As preparations began, Eliar allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. Diseases, natural disasters, civil wars. But the vastness of the galaxy magnified every challenge. Here in the cold infinity of space, humans were fragile, yes, but their will was resilient. Their ingenuity was their weapon. And above all, their unity. The bond between souls was something the living fleet could never truly understand. Hours passed in tense silence. Outside the viewport, the void seemed deceptively calm. Then the sensors picked up movement, subtle, fluid, almost imperceptible. The living fleet was returning, larger and more synchronized than before. Their forms shimmered with bioluminescent pulses, communicating without words, thinking without pause. Eliar gave the order. "Hold your positions. Wait for the moment. Then strike as one." The living fleet surged forward and the humans waited, hearts pounding. Mara's fingers hovered over the console, ready to unleash the decoy sequence. Jonas's team held formation. Every ship in the human fleet seemed to breathe as one, a singular organism fueled by courage and fear alike. The first contact was violent. Alien tendrils sliced through space, but the decoys worked. They diverted several key attackers, drawing them into a trap. Human plasma and torpedoes struck with devastating accuracy, cutting through the fluid forms like lightning through water. Explosions illuminated the darkness, revealing glimpses of the terrifying beauty of the living fleet. Yet victory came at a cost. A sudden strike from an unexpected angle hit the horizon's port side. The hull shuddered, lights flickered, and alarms screamed. Eliar gritted his teeth. "Damage report. Section 7 compromised, sir. Hull integrity at 62%. Casualties are..." Mara's voice cracked, but she pressed on. 5 fatalities confirmed, 22 injured. Eliar clenched his fists. Every loss mattered, every life precious, but he could not allow despair to infect the crew. "We push forward," he said firmly. "We cannot falter now. Not after what we've learned. Not after what we've survived." Jonas placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're right. We fight or we die, but we fight as humans, and that is something they cannot take from us." Eliar allowed himself a nod. Humanity's spirit was their greatest weapon. It was intangible, unquantifiable, yet infinitely more potent than any fleet or weapon. The living fleet may be adaptive, but it could not feel loyalty, courage, hope, or grief. It could not understand the human heart, and that was where their greatest strength lay. As the battle continued, Mara noticed something astonishing. The living ships, in their relentless pursuit, began to cluster unnaturally, forming a pattern that suggested not just attack, but communication, a strategy. They were learning not just to react, but to anticipate human tactics. Eliar's eyes narrowed. "Then we give them something unexpected, something they cannot predict." He turned to the crew, voice ringing with determination. "Tonight we do more than survive. Tonight we remind the galaxy why humanity endures. We strike where they think us weakest, and we make them regret underestimating us." Outside, the void waited, infinite and dark. But inside, the hearts of humans burned brighter than any star. Fear lingered, yes, but courage roared louder. Every ship, every pilot, every soul aboard the Horizon carried a singular truth. Humanity did not yield. Humanity did not submit. Humanity fought because to fight was to live, and to live was to defy the void itself. The living fleet advanced, unaware that they were heading into the greatest trap humanity had ever set in the void. And for the first time across the cold reaches of space, a subtle doubt began to flicker among their ranks. A hesitation that Eliar Kael and his crew would exploit with merciless precision. Tonight, the humans would teach them a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. When humanity fights, fury is inevitable, and surrender is impossible. The valiant Horizon quivered as the fleet held its formation, waiting for the signal. Stars stretched like frozen rivers across the void, indifferent to the lives about to clash within their depths. On the bridge, Commander Eliar Kael's eyes burned with purpose. Every heartbeat was a countdown, every breath a tether to the crew's collective resolve. Positions locked, Mara Solis confirmed. Her voice, usually calm and precise, carried an undercurrent of tension. All decoys deployed. The trap is ready. Jonas Varric stepped forward, his gaze sweeping across the bridge. Sir, this may be the bloodiest maneuver we've attempted yet. We risk everything. Eliar's hands gripped the railing. Everything is already at risk. We have no choice but to act. Humans do not wait for fate, they seize it. His words reverberated across the bridge, igniting a spark of courage in the hearts of every officer. In the distance, the living fleet shimmered, immense and alien, flowing like molten metal across space. They moved with lethal grace, their forms pulsating with an eerie rhythm, and yet they did not know what awaited them. Now, Eliar commanded. The human fleet surged forward, luring the living ships into the ambush. Plasma torpedoes and guided arrays exploded in blinding cascades, forming corridors of fire and light that disoriented the enemy. The living fleet reacted with uncanny speed, twisting and weaving. But human ingenuity had accounted for their adaptability. The Horizon led the strike, flanking the largest clusters while smaller human ships darted between the tendrils of the enemy. Mara's fingers flew across the console, recalibrating targeting systems and releasing countermeasures. Explosions flared like supernovae, illuminating the void with deadly beauty. Even as victory seemed within reach, the cost became visible. The Horizon shuddered under repeated strikes. Warning lights bathed the bridge in crimson. Crew members gritted their teeth, gripping consoles as explosions rippled through the hull. Evasive maneuvers, Eliar ordered, his voice steady. Do not let fear control you. Fight with your minds as well as your weapons. Amid the chaos, a small fighter squadron led by Lieutenant Rena Torvald cut through an enemy flank, their sleek vessels dancing between lethal pulses of energy. Rena's heart pounded, but she felt something stronger than fear, the unshakable certainty that she would not yield. Every shot she fired, every maneuver she made was a declaration. Humanity refuses to bow. Back on the bridge, Mara detected something extraordinary. The living fleet, despite its adaptability, began to hesitate. Their fluid forms recoiled from concentrated fire, almost as if the humans' audacity had created a ripple of uncertainty. Eliar's eyes narrowed. Push them. Push until they falter. The ambush reached its peak. Human ships encircled clusters of living vessels, unleashing volleys of precision fire. Explosions tore the void apart, illuminating the cold darkness with fire and fury. The living fleet writhed, powerful and relentless, yet for the first time they displayed signs of confusion. But the victory was not without sacrifice. A sudden strike tore through the Horizon's dorsal section. Alarms screamed, metal groaned, and a brilliant flash blinded the bridge. Mara stumbled but recovered, issuing damage reports. Hull breach in Sector 12. Life support compromised. Eliar's jaw tightened. Evacuate non-essential personnel. Seal the sections. Keep the fighting teams operational. We survive this, or we make the enemy pay tenfold. The crew moved with precise coordination, a testament to the human spirit under pressure. Fear was present, yes, but it fueled focus rather than panic. Every ship, every pilot, every crew member acted as one. Humanity distilled into a singular, relentless force. Outside, the living fleet struggled. Their adaptation had limits. For every vessel they destroyed, multiple humans survived and countered. Their pulsing forms collided with the human traps, and for the first time in recorded engagement, hesitation flickered among their ranks. Eliar allowed himself a brief glance at Mara. They are learning, yes, but they do not know us. They cannot know what it means to fight not just for survival, but for everything we hold dear. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time had no meaning in the heart of fire. When the last tendril of the living fleet finally broke formation, retreating into the darkness, a cautious cheer erupted across the valiant horizon. Eliar did not celebrate. There were too many losses, too many scars, too many questions yet unanswered. But he allowed himself something smaller, a smile of grim pride. Humanity had struck back and the enemy had faltered. Jonas approached, his voice low but firm. We made them hesitate. That is a start, sir. Eliar nodded, staring into the void. A start, yes, but the war has only begun. They will return stronger, faster, more cunning. And when they do, we must be ready to meet them with everything we are, mind, body, and spirit. As the horizon regrouped with the surviving fleet, the void seemed less cold, less indifferent. Humanity had carved a scar into the infinite darkness, and across that darkness a single truth radiated. Their challenge was war, but humanity's response was fury, unyielding and unforgettable. Above, the stars remained indifferent. Below, the human heart burned brighter than any light, a beacon of defiance, resilience, and unshakable resolve. The void was alive with echoes of destruction. Smoke and energy pulses lingered like ghosts in the wake of the previous ambush. The valiant horizon drifted among the remains of the battlefield, battered but unbroken. Each scar on the hull was a testament to survival, each warning light a silent tribute to the lives lost. Eliar Kael stood at the viewport, eyes locked on the distant glimmer of the returning living fleet. The enemy was stronger now, having adapted, learning not only from human tactics but from human courage. The memory of yesterday's battle burned in his mind. Not just strategy, but the faces of those who had fallen. Every death a wound, every victory a cost. Sir, Mara Solis said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice trembled just slightly. The first hint of human vulnerability he had allowed himself to hear. We can't just keep reacting. They'll eventually outmaneuver us if we don't anticipate their next move. Eliar nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Then we act. Not from fear, but from foresight. And we make every action count. Every life, every decision, it matters. From the comms, a young pilot's voice pierced the bridge. Horizon, this is Torvald's squadron. We've encountered a swarm blocking the sector ahead. They're fast, aggressive, and... A sudden silence followed, broken only by static. Eliar's heart clenched. Rena, he barked. Mara immediately pulled up her signal feed. But all they saw was flickering energy, ships disappearing into the alien swarm. Sir, Jonas Varric said grimly, they're sacrificing themselves to slow the enemy. It's strategic, but brutal. Eliar clenched his fists. Sacrifice was part of war, but this was personal now. Every pilot, every crew member, every human soul aboard these ships was part of something far greater than themselves. And they had chosen to give everything to buy the horizon a chance. The horizon surged forward, engines flaring like a living heartbeat, cutting through the darkness toward the next engagement. Every system pulsed with precision, but Eliar knew that courage alone could not win this fight. Strategy, unity, and sheer human ingenuity would be the weapons that carried them through. Deploy tactical drones, Eliar ordered. Feed the swarm false coordinates. Draw them into our firing arcs. And open targeting arrays. Maximize efficiency, minimize risk. Outside, the void became a kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Swirling alien tendrils met human fire in a violent ballet. The drones darted like sparks, luring enemies into traps laid with careful calculation. Plasma bolts tore through the void, explosions blossoming like deadly flowers against the inky backdrop of space. Even as the humans struck, the loss of Torvald's squadron weighed heavily. Eliar felt it in his chest in the hollow ache of responsibility. Yet in that grief he found resolve. Humanity was fragile, yes, but fragile beings could endure unimaginable pain and still rise. They could fight against impossible odds and turn despair into fury. Sir, Mara whispered, her eyes wide on the tactical display. They're regrouping. They're learning from every hit, every loss. They'll come back stronger, faster. Eliar nodded. Then we show them what it means to fight humans at their limits. We do not falter. We do not fear. And we do not yield. The next wave of combat erupted like a storm. Energy flares, twisted metal, and screams of engines filled the void. Every strike carried the weight of human lives. Every maneuver the legacy of survival etched into every crew member's heart. And through it all, the horizon moved with singular purpose: to hold, to endure, to carve a path through the darkness with fire and courage. As the smoke cleared, survivors of the swarm maneuvered around the horizon, staggering under the weight of human ingenuity and spirit. It was a hard-fought victory, but victory nonetheless. The crew moved among the injured, offering words, hands, and quiet solidarity. Loss had come, yes, but humanity endured. Eliar looked at the stars once more, and a quiet fury settled in his chest. They had lost, they had suffered, but they had survived. And every scar, every loss, every flicker of human resilience would be etched into the galaxy's memory. The living fleet was out there, and they would return, stronger, faster, smarter. But Eliar Kael and his crew were ready. Humanity did not fight for conquest, for domination, or for greed. They fought because to fight was to exist, to endure, and to refuse to bow to any force that sought to snuff out their light. And somewhere deep in the void, across unmeasured light years, the enemy would feel it, the unmistakable, unyielding truth of the human spirit. They had challenged war. Humanity had responded, and their response was fire, fury, and unbreakable will. The void had grown colder, darker, and infinitely more menacing. Weeks of skirmishes had taken their toll on the human fleet. Hulls were scarred, engines worn, and hearts weighed heavy with loss. Yet within that fatigue burned a singular truth: humans did not break. Humans adapted, they endured, and when the moment came, they struck with a fury no creature of instinct could comprehend. Eliar Kael stood on the bridge of the valiant horizon, the dim red glow of damage alerts reflecting off his face. He surveyed the crew, each of them weary, scarred, yet unyielding. Mara Solis was at her console, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion etched on her face. Jonas Varric moved among the bridge stations, checking every system, every tactical readout. "The living fleet is reorganizing," Mara said quietly. "They've learned from our ambushes. They're coordinating differently now, faster, more aggressive." Eliar nodded. "Good, that's exactly what we want." Jonas frowned. "Sir, they're learning too fast. Every maneuver we anticipate, they counter. Every trap we set, they adapt. Eventually, we can't predict them." Eliar's eyes hardened. "Then we give them something they cannot anticipate. Something no algorithm, no instinct, no alien mind can foresee." The strategy was simple in concept, impossible in execution. The horizon would draw the living fleet into a narrow corridor near the gravity well of a nearby collapsed star, a place where their fluid forms could not maneuver effectively. Every human ship would have to hold formation. Every weapon must fire with surgical precision. Survival depended on discipline, courage, and the ability to endure beyond fear. The human fleet moved into position. Every crew member knew the stakes. Success would be a decisive strike against the enemy. Failure would mean annihilation. Across the void, the living fleet pulsed like a vast, unyielding ocean, each tendril flexing in anticipation of engagement. Eliar's voice cut through the tense silence. "This is it. Every strike counts. Every life matters. Humanity survives through ingenuity, courage, and unity. Now we make them pay for every soul they've tried to snuff out." The first shots rang out. Plasma arcs flared against the darkness, illuminating the alien forms. The living fleet advanced, undeterred, their fluid shapes twisting to avoid destruction. But the corridor was narrow. Their movement became restricted, and the humans exploited every limitation. Lieutenant Rena Torvald's new squadron, rebuilt from survivors and reinforcements, dove into the fray. They maneuvered with lethal precision, striking at weak points in the enemy's formation. Mara coordinated drone swarms, decoy flares, and plasma torrents to funnel the living fleet into the gravitational trap. It worked. Slowly, methodically, the alien fleet became trapped, their fluid forms strained against the corridor, their adaptive instincts unable to overcome the physical limitations imposed by the humans. Explosions erupted, feeding back into the gravity well, tearing the living vessels apart. Yet for every victory, the cost was evident. Ships screamed in the void as energy tore them asunder. Human pilots and crews sacrificed themselves to ensure the plan succeeded. Each death was a knife in the chest of the survivors. Yet it also ignited something fierce: rage, determination, and a unity born of shared peril. Eliar stood firm, watching the battlefield unfold like a living tapestry of fire, light, and shadow.
Hold the line.
Do not let one ship fall out of formation. Mara's fingers flew across her console, recalibrating targeting systems. Sir, we've forced them into the star's pull. They can't adapt fast enough. Now we strike with everything we have. The Horizon led the final strike, unleashing concentrated volleys of torpedoes and plasma. One by one, the living vessels shattered, their luminous forms collapsing like dying stars. The void trembled with the magnitude of destruction. Eliar allowed himself a moment to breathe. Victory was not yet complete. Some tendrils still escaped, slinking into the darkness. But humanity had achieved something extraordinary. They had fought against impossible odds and forced an alien intelligence to retreat. They had survived. Jonas placed a hand on Eliar's shoulder. We did it, for now. But they'll return, sir. They always do. Eliar's gaze did not leave the void. Then we will be ready. Humanity does not fear the void. Humanity does not cower in the face of annihilation. Every scar, every loss, every life sacrifice strengthens us. That is what makes us unstoppable. Mara looked at him, awe and exhaustion mixed in her eyes. Do you really think they understand what they're up against? Eliar smiled faintly, grim but resolute. They'll learn soon enough. Our fury is not just firepower. It's resilience. It's courage. It's humanity itself. That is a force no living machine can overcome. Outside, the stars burned indifferently. But within the fleet, a new light had ignited, one that no alien intelligence could extinguish. One that would endure, grow, and rage across the void until humanity had claimed its rightful place in the galaxy. The living fleet had challenged war. Humanity had responded, and their response had left a scar across infinity itself. The stars stretched like infinite silver threads across the black canvas of space. The valiant Horizon drifted among the remnants of the battlefield. Hull scorched, engines strained, but the human spirit unbroken. The living fleet had retreated, but its pulse still echoed across the void, a reminder that the war was far from over. Yet, for the first time, humanity had tasted victory, and the taste burned sweet and fierce. Commander Eliar Kael stood at the bridge, gaze steady on the void, mind alive with both sorrow and determination. They had lost friends, colleagues, and heroes, but each sacrifice had carved a path toward survival, toward defiance, toward proving the unyielding truth of humanity. Mara Solis's hands hovered over the console. They're regrouping again, she said quietly. But I've never seen them hesitate like this before. They know we can fight, that we will fight, Eliar nodded. Good, let them come. Let them see what it means to face humans at their limits. Jonas Varric, standing beside him, grinned faintly. We've turned fear into advantage. They'll remember this day. The fleet moved as one, silent and precise like a heartbeat in the vast darkness. Every crew member, every ship carried the weight of humanity's collective spirit. And that spirit was not fragile, it was relentless. It was fire-tempered in the cold void, a force no alien intelligence could truly understand. Then across the distance, the living fleet appeared again. Immense, luminous, a flowing mass of deadly intent, but slower, cautious, fragmented. The humans had shown them something new, the cost of underestimating resilience, ingenuity, and courage. Eliar's voice rang clear across the bridge. This is it. All we have, all we are, every memory of those we've lost, use it. Fight not just to survive, but to show them what it means to challenge humanity. The Horizon surged forward. Weapons flared. Energy beams arced across space, and the human fleet executed maneuvers that blurred the line between precision and instinct. Every strike, every tactic reflected a species that refused to bow. The living fleet responded with unmatched adaptability, but the humans had learned too. They anticipated, countered, and then struck with brilliance born of desperation and hope. Drones darted like sparks, decoys flared, torpedoes cut through the void, and for every living tendril that reached out, there was a human hand ready to tear it apart. Amid the chaos, personal heroism shone brightest. Pilots dove into swarms to protect slower ships. Engineers patched breaches while the hull shuddered around them, and medics ran through corridors of fire and smoke, saving lives as if courage alone could bind wounds. Every act, no matter how small, became part of the symphony of resistance. Eliar watched, heart swelling with pride and grief. They were fragile beings in an infinite void, yet they struck with the force of storms. They endured loss, adapted to impossibility, and above all, they fought with hearts that refused to yield. Finally, After hours that felt like lifetimes, the living fleet faltered. Their flowing forms twisted and splintered, energy flaring violently as they withdrew into the darkness. Humanity had not just survived, they had left a mark, an undeniable declaration across the void. They would not surrender. Eliar exhaled, a long, weary breath. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder, eyes bright with relief and exhaustion. "We did it," she whispered. He shook his head slowly. "We did not win, not yet. But we made them understand something they cannot adapt to. Humanity fights not just with weapons, but with heart, courage, and unbreakable will." Jonas smiled faintly. "And that they will never overcome." Outside, the stars burned as always, indifferent to lives and battles. Yet, through that indifference, humanity had carved a truth as enduring as light itself. They had faced annihilation and had chosen to respond not with fear but with fury. They had fought, endured, and declared across the infinite void, "We are human. We will not bow. We will not break. And our spirit will burn across the stars forever." The valiant horizon moved forward, engines flaring like the pulse of life itself. Across the void, scattered remnants of the enemy fled, and in their retreat a new fear took root. The recognition that humanity was unlike anything they had faced. And so, the first chapter of this war closed not with surrender, not with defeat, but with the blazing truth of human resilience. Their challenge had been war. Humanity's response had rained fury across the void, and it would never stop.